The process to the Texans getting CJ Stroud was an eventful one. There was a lot of chatter. There was a lot of talk. Nick Caserio was front and center on that. He had his own little dialogue in chat when it came to all of the stuff coming out during the draft process. Many did not expect the Texans to take CJ Stroud. They ended up doing so. And now Nick Caserio has addressed some of the chatter that took place during the draft process, as well as what to expect from CJ Stroud, what it's been like getting to know CJ Stroud, and they'll get their first look on the field at CJ Stroud this week as the rookies will be on the field. Let's go inside the locker room and break it all down.
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room.
Happy schedule week to everyone, we think. Peter King has said that he believes the schedule will be ready on Thursday when the NFL is planning to drop it. However, there's going to be a meeting today to maybe speed up that process. Maybe it's taken a little bit longer than we had hoped. Anticipate the Texans having probably one primetime game. Who knows? Maybe two, because they do have the rookie quarterback and more intrigue than they've had the last couple of years. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. So draft talk is interesting. And if you take it for what it's worth, I actually think it's exciting. It's uncertain. It's wild. It's wacky. What's true one day is not true the next. You have the betting odds. You have the mock drafts. You have the speculation. You have the reports. It's fun. It's wild. It's wacky. And sometimes, though, you can look back and you can say, okay, well, maybe that wasn't true. And maybe this was out there for a reason. And I think in the case of CJ Stroud, there was a lot of chatter. There was a lot of dialogue that maybe either just didn't matter in the big scheme of things once teams look deeper into other areas, or maybe it was put out there for a reason. And one of the main things that we heard was about the S2 cognition test, which I said from the beginning, I don't know what the hell that is. I've never heard of it. I don't know how much that matters. I do think, though, and this is the one thing, before we hear from Nick Caserio on CJ and the processing and we get into the biggest obstacles for CJ Stroud, as well as the expectations and why the schedule is so exciting. And subscribe, like, right along with me. Be on the air today, and we'll probably have some players for you this week on the radio show straight off of the practice field. The thing that I think is important when talking about prospects and the whole process of evaluating them and taking in all the measurements and stuff is absolutes shouldn't be a thing when adding talent. Every form of testing, every form of evaluation of prospects, there are probably exceptions to everything. Whether it's, this person scored low on this test, another one scored high, the Wonderlic test. Like, there are quarterbacks who scored low on the Wonderlic test and ended up having excellent careers. There are quarterbacks who scored high on the Wonderlic test, ended up having excellent careers. And there are some who scored high that ended up having awful careers. There are some 40 times where some of the best 40 times that we've ever seen, those guys ended up being complete and total busts. And there's some guys where they had awful combines and they ended up being all pro caliber players. So there shouldn't be absolutes when it comes to measuring stuff. Now, some of it might matter for different reasons, but maybe a player possesses different traits that allow him to be able to succeed. Again, I don't know what the test is. I think it is a given that when you go from Ohio State to the NFL, you're obviously going to have to, given the receivers you have around you and given just the way that the system is, you're obviously going to have to progress. But also 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, they probably shouldn't be finished products. There are some who probably come in and sound like they're 35 and they process the game like that, but they shouldn't be finished products. And if you have a coaching staff that's worth a damn, and you have an offensive staff and all the resources that NFL has that's worth a damn, then you should probably be able to figure some stuff out. So you take it all into account and you figure it out. In the case of CJ Stroud, I think it's interesting because if you believe the reports that Tennessee was going to trade up for him at 3, and you see that the Texans took him at 2, and you wonder if Indianapolis was going to take him at 4, what did it even matter in the first place? Like, why was it out there? What did it mean? I think that's something that needs to be taken into account. Now, with Will Levis, you heard, well, teams aren't as high on Will Levis because of this. Well, every team passed on him in the first round. So maybe there was something there. But in the CJ Stroud case, he went number 2 overall. There were talks that he was going to go number 3 overall had the Texans not taken him. So maybe it didn't matter as much. Nick Caserio was on Sports Radio 610, and he was asked by Seth Payne about the processing. And it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek. They were just kind of asking about, all the test stuff, because sometimes, Nick's not going to give you a direct answer. But this is what Nick had to say about processing from college to the NFL level.
How's his processing? It's good. He can recognize things. He can understand things. I think Ryan has a pretty good system and offense that he runs. I think our offense is going to be different than Ryan's offense. So until you actually sort of roll up your sleeves and start to understand what we're going to do offensively, how Bobby's going to coach him, how Gerard's going to coach him, but it's going to be about work. I would say, to answer your question, your loaded question directly, when you watch him play, you don't necessarily say, well, that's an issue. When we get him here, everybody's starting from scratch. So you sort of have to reprogram and redevelop your mind, your body, and then that position, your feet. Because playing that position is much about your feet. It's really as much about your feet and your mind as it is just your upper body and your throwing.
See, so, obviously there's going to be some work to be done. And that's something that Caserio spoke about. Also spoke about Bobby Slowick. It's going to be a first-year offensive coordinator. Gerard Johnson's worked with quarterbacks. This is the first year that he's going to be the quarterback coach. So there's going to be a lot of factors. And quite frankly, rookies aren't finished products. I know that overreactions are fun, overreaction Monday. And with the schedule coming out, there's going to be a lot of chances to overreact on Mondays. You're going to maybe see him face him being CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson 2 times. You're going to see him face Bryce Young. You're going to see him face maybe Will Levis. So you're going to have a lot of chances to overreact. But when laying out expectations for rookies, it should be noted that, there's been examples where rookies have had bad first years and some have had good first years. And then as soon as things even out, they don't look as good. Hell, 2 years ago, we were talking about Davis Mills having a better rookie year than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had a bad rookie year. A lot of that had to do with Urban Meyer and the coaching. A lot of it had to do with the fact that he didn't have guys to throw to, which could be an issue with CJ Stroud. The Texans receiving core right now on paper is one of the most unimpressive receiving cores in the NFL. Bobby Slowick might be able to get the most out of it, but just on paper, it's not an impressive receiving core. So that was one of Trevor Lawrence's problems, on top of Urban Meyer being a complete flop. Patrick Mahomes started one game his rookie year. He wasn't necessarily ready to go. And then we saw what he developed into. You've seen Aaron Rodgers sit out for a few years. Hell, Andrew Luck was worse than RG3 when in their rookie seasons. Everybody was talking about RG3 or Luck, and then that kind of evened out. You've had all kinds of examples of rookies, and some struggling, some not looking good. Joe Burrow, when did he really turn the corner? He got hurt the rookie year, but when he got Jamar Chase, they had to add a receiver for him. That was when he turned the corner. So there's all kinds of examples. And when laying out expectations, as long as he's developing and he's going in there and he's going through the growing pains, and he's controlling what he can control, and what he can't control, the front office is able to address and take care of, then you're going to be in good shape and you're going to be fine. But CJ Stroud's always going to be connected to Bryce Young and the other quarterbacks in this class. And then probably next year, because the Texans decided not to wait for a quarterback, he's going to be connected to those guys if things don't go well. But there are some things that he can control. There are some things that he can't. It's not just on him, though. It's going to be on, and if you just put it on him, then you're going to have a situation where he's kind of fighting an uphill battle, and that's not what you want. We kind of saw that with Deshaun Watson, where there was decent personnel, but the coach wasn't maximizing what Deshaun Watson could do. So there's going to be stuff CJ can control, the coaching staff's going to have to make it easy. And from a personnel perspective, if we go through the season and we realize they need more receivers, like Jacksonville did with Trevor Lawrence, they're going to have to figure that out, and they're going to have to put some pieces around him. So laying out expectations for rookies is always kind of tough. Rookie quarterbacks, especially when they're coming into these situations. I actually think the guys that are CJ Stroud's peers probably have a little bit more around them, at least at the moment on paper, because we don't know about Bobby Slowick than he does. So I would channel the expectations. I would say win 6 games and just grow and progress and control what he can control would be my expectations. What about the mindset of CJ Stroud? That's been the thing right now where I think the CJ Stroud approval rating is going up right now because of that stuff. And at the podium, you see the authenticity, you hear the authenticity, and CJ Stroud, it's hard not to like him when he's at the podium. There's just a certain level of innocence, certain level of authenticity. And I think Nick Caserio can kind of see that. And Nick Caserio's answer here is interesting because this goes back to the absolutes that we talked about at the start of this. This is Nick Caserio talking about CJ Stroud's personality, what it's been like getting to know him through this process.
He wants to compete. He wants to be really, really good. He holds himself to a high standard. And I would say you can just kind of feel that when you speak with him and talk to him. It's something you can't just read on a sheet of paper and someone says, well, this guy's a good leader, he's competitive and tough. Okay, that's great. But when you actually interact with someone, then you have a better idea. And then you're looking for a manifestation of that and how he portrays that to you. So I would say that was probably one of the things among others that really stood out about him. He's very driven, very prideful. He cares a lot about football. He internalizes a lot because he cares. His ability to kind of use that in a positive way. He was kind of going through his story. You could just kind of feel his edge, and he's a real dude. He's very authentic. And quite frankly, that can, depending on who the person is, can maybe rub some people the wrong way, right? Like if you have a, external veneer where you're a little gruff, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So CJ's a great person, loves his mom, loves his sister, very proud of what he's accomplished and overcome. And, I think he developed a lot of good relationship with a lot of different folks at Ohio State. Those are some of the things that really manifest themselves. And he started to put that together with the physical skills, understanding, and we've talked about this. He certainly has things that he can work on and improve, which all rookies and players do. We're excited to have him in the building here next week when the rookies arrive.
And next week is now this week. So they're going to get CJ in the building, and we'll get our first look at him. We'll probably hear him and get a better idea of things, and we'll have it covered. Also, the schedule could come out. But the edge is interesting because it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It goes back to the absolutes. You got to take – there shouldn't be one thing. Now, maybe there's like some sort of extreme thing that you want to look past, but there should be no absolutes. And the CJ Stroud process has been interesting, and we'll see how it goes down. But we will get our first look at CJ. We'll get a look at what the schedule looks like. Peter King's trying to build it up. That schedule's coming out this week, at least I hope. Nick Caserio on the testing. Sometimes the dialogue isn't realistic. Sometimes different areas work different ways in the NFL. But there should be no absolutes. It's going to be fun. Going to be a fun process. Some things CJ can control. Some things he can't. But there's a lot of excitement in the city. The draft is over. Time to look ahead. We'll get our first look at the Texans rookies. We'll have a schedule special this week. I'll break it down like no one else can, and we'll continue to cuss and discuss what's going on with the Houston Texans daily, because this is the #1 source for Texans daily digital content. Have a good week. Happy schedule week. Hope everyone's doing well. And this has been another edition of The Locker Room. No matter what happens with the Texans, just remember, when it comes to this game, we're all in this together.
Top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways.